Welcome to Goldfish on Games, where today we're donning the bandana of the mercenary known as Damage, as we've been given a job by the creatively named Bossman, and that is to take out the head of Takahiro Industries in this 23rd century ultra conversion, Malice for Quake, which was released in 1997. And this being a total conversion, it requires the full version of Quake to be able to play it, as the front of the box lets you know. And the back, well, it has actually nothing to say, and the blank back is a new one on me. Now this was developed by Apocalypse, with Quantum Access both publishing the game as well as giving additional development help. Inside we get the game on a single CD, as well as a manual that goes over a bit of the backstory of the warring corporations and the various crime syndicates, of which we're working for BOSS, which was imaginatively named by its leader, Colonel Bossman. It also goes over the new weapons, items, and baddies that you can expect to find. On starting, we get the conversion's equivalent of the Slipgate complex. That's less about setting the difficulty, as, well, you can't change that here. The manual tells you that if you want to change that, then you're gonna have to use the console to do it. This is more about giving us a sandbox to try out the various new items, what they call toys, that they've added to the game, like a submarine. That can be quite useful, or the drone, which I never really worked out what it was useful for. There's also a few other additions that we'll find along the way. And I honestly have to say, for a game built in vanilla Quake, as in it runs from the regular Quake executable, what they've done with the scripting language is incredible. I mean, just look at this intro cutscene. This was a year before Half-Life showed up.
Lopez, you scumbag. I've been looking for you.
Damn it, wouldn't shoot a man in the back, would you?
Now you might have noticed that the resolution and aspect ratio isn't particularly retro, and that's because I'm playing the ModDB version of the game using Quake Spasm. And I think this is for some very obvious reasons right now, but there's a few less obvious ones that we'll get into later. Now this surprisingly long and voiced intro lays the groundwork for our story, in which Bossman decides to lead us down the garden path, and Pinky swears, well, if he had a pinky, that if we finish the next job for him, he will definitely pay us what we're owed. Now if you're not aware what a total conversion, or as the box called it, an ultra conversion is, then it's a term used for making a brand new game that uses someone else's engine. But it doesn't use any assets from that original title, so all the maps, weapons, monsters and texture work should all be brand new. But they've not provided any executable on the CD, you have to do that yourself. So things can feel very similar to that source game. And this one, well, it mostly ends up being find the key or switch to open a door that will lead you onto the next key or switch. It's that style of gameplay. But that's not to say things are completely identical. Weapons are now more realistic, which means you have to reload them constantly, as that's what was really missing from FPSs up until this point. But the levels are more detailed than what we saw in Quake, with an effort made to give a more real-world vibe to them, or at least less of an abstract, space designed just for gameplay feel. And these are a massive step up from a lot of the community maps that we've checked out previously. But like a lot of those maps, this does suffer from the age-old Quake problem of it being quite dark. And while the patched up version is quite nice, as they added a flashlight, it wasn't part of the original release, but it really could have done with it. The enemy design, well, it's a bit odd, as we get this one that's hanging from the ceilings, and it will drop down when you get near to attack you. Now can you just imagine being given that shift? So yeah, you're gonna need to dangle from a wire all day, and if someone happens to break in, then you can rush down and shoot them with your machine gun. All good? Great. The second level has a very different feel to it, from this atmospheric rain that's coming through these gaps, to the place slowly coming back to life with the lights turning on as you explore it more. But it does also make you continue to question the life choices of the various enemies, as this one, well, they're entirely melee based, and they'll just be sat there in the dark waiting to ambush you, or drop from the ceiling to attack. They are certainly committed to their job. Now you'll end up having to search around to find the buttons to shoot, as it wouldn't be a Quake game if there was just one button to open up a door. And along the way you might discover one of the other party pieces of the title, walls that you can shoot at and destroy. Now we're doing all of this to open up a set of fans that will send you flying into a water pit. And then eventually, starting up a conveyor, the game is full of these little set pieces. And while I was exploring this level, I came across this wall that I was able to destroy, and I found the entrance to the secret levels, which gives quite an interesting message when it starts, that due to how complex they are, you might want to use either the very latest version of Quake, or even better yet, GL Quake, as you're going to need it. As these levels have a lot going on, as we start with this large tower that we have to jump down from, and then we find what is an army of Lara Croft lookalikes with their twin pistols. They also like to teleport around, if you don't take them out particularly quickly. Now we get this little puzzle room that we'll keep coming back to, and possibly the more interesting part is this examination room, where you'll need to fire missiles into teleporters that will go through other teleporters and eventually blow stuff up. The look of the levels continue to change as we progress. They must have made a large range of custom textures for this pack. And while the architecture is always well done, as in they always look quite cool and interesting, trying to work out where you actually need to go isn't always clear. I was stuck for ages until I worked out that I could move one of these boxes. But it also didn't help that they're quite glitchy and they wouldn't move into the right place, until, well, they just clipped into the wall and was just about where I needed them to be. They had this fun little bit at the end of the level where you needed to use this moving platform to beat a tight time limit. This led us to, well, a city level, with a hell of a jump to start things off. Well, it would be if you had the parachute. Instead, you have to try and make it to the other side. Now, by 1997 standards, this is nicely done. And there's even a hoverboard that you can find that will make movement and jumping much better. I think I ended up using this to sequence break the level, as there was talk of needing various keys, but I never did find any of those due to, well, just jumping around and getting into various windows. I think I ended up missing about half the level. As before I knew it, I was on this bridge that was just exploding and, well, it just led straight to a cutscene.
Now where's my money?
It's safe, damage, don't worry. My hunters will hold it until you've completed your next mission.
Next mission? Give me
And surprise, surprise, Boss Man is again wanting us to do another job before they'll pay us. And his treat this time, well, it's a sewer level. Oh, and he also took away all of our weapons, so we don't exactly start this well armed. And wow, did they really pay for infrastructure. Just look at the size of these pipes, and all the walkways that are going on in here as well. Although they probably could have put a bit more effort in to try and get rid of the massive fish, that are in the water and will try to bite you. One interesting addition to the game is its concept of fire, as both us and the enemies have weapons that can set the other on fire, and that will continue to hurt you until you find water or a fire extinguisher. So if you were wondering what those red things were on the previous levels, that's what they're used for. And because of this system, 2 of our 7 weapons deal fire damage. One replaces the shotgun and acts very much like it, and the other is a mortar that replaces the grenade launcher, although it's not quite as fun to use as the grenade launcher. And to be honest, I've actually found it much harder to set the enemy on fire than it is for them to do the same to us. I think it's an issue with the amount of health that they've got. Now the rest of the guns are mostly what we would come to expect. We have a pistol with unlimited ammo, but you will have to reload it all of the time. We have a double-barreled shotgun, that is a pretty decent staple. The nail guns are replaced with a machine gun, which I found to be my go-to as it's pretty accurate and it does decent damage, as well as a chain gun that can pretty much level anything if you have the ammo for it. We also have the standard rocket launcher, which I didn't really use as much as I'd expect as it didn't really feel all that powerful. And then we have this railgun style thing that can also do splash damage. Now technically there's one more weapon, the big ass gun. But annoyingly, it only shows up in deathmatch. I didn't even know this thing existed until I read the manual. Every so often the game does like to give you hints at what you're meant to do, and I think it's because this isn't always obvious. Like here we have to shoot these panels, and you'll be finding them all throughout this level. And if you didn't know about them from the start, you would have had to have done some significant backtracking when you worked it out. Which does then make them feel a little pointless, as the last one is right next to what they end up triggering, which is opening up the door next to the mini-sub. So it's possibly a little overcomplicated in what is otherwise a pretty solid level. I'm constantly impressed with the quality of the levels. We are barely a year out from expansions like Aftershock, and a year and a half from Quake. And already the people have gotten to grips with this engine and this new way of making maps. And they've done a great job of making these large levels with huge areas that you have to explore. To these smaller, well-crafted ones that have a real sense of place. And then we have the power plant. Now this is an interesting one, as you'll just be exploring, pushing buttons to try and find the keys as you always do. And then you'll get a message after turning the power on, that the plant is going to explode in 60 seconds. Now at first I figured this was just a bit of fun text. And then after what felt like much longer than a minute, everything went white and I died. They actually did it. They blew it up. And it turns out that is what Bossman sent us to do. And is he going to pay us this time?
We'll double your money if you succeed.
No. And are we going to trust him again? It seems yes, as he has yet another mission for us. Talk about sunk cost fallacies. But yeah, sure, let's go fire some chemical missiles. I'm sure that's going to go absolutely swimmingly. If you had any doubts that this was authorized by id Software, or at least the publisher of Quake, well, this, along with Qzone, a pack that we've seen previously, were bundled together along with Quake, and then released by GT Interactive, which I think is where that double CD version originally came from, as they still had to get authorized to release this, but I guess it must have been much cheaper to do it this way than to buy a license to the engine and then releasing the whole thing as a regular standalone game, which makes it interesting as we didn't see too many games released in this way. The parachute really starts to come into its own around about now, as there are a lot of tall buildings with some huge drops, which being able to float down and then not take full damage or just outright kill yourself is extremely handy. But it does feel as we move on, they expected us to take damage, as trying to get through this tunnel with its lava and not get hurt wasn't particularly easy. It also didn't feel like exactly the right way to go, but it is. And then it just sort of ends with this nondescript exit. But at least the next level starts by lobbing us across the map, and then opens up to be one of the more creative ones in what is actually quite a creative game, as it messes around with water. As we have this huge flooded middle portion of the map that we're going to have to travel in and out of as we are trying to find the keys. Now this gives us another good chance to mess around with that submarine, even if it is pretty easy to outrace the torpedoes that it fires. This is also one of the more infamous levels in the game, as in its original release it was bugged, to the extent that it was missing a much required parachute, as after defeating a robot that, well, it couldn't decide if it fully existed or not in my playthrough, there is this huge shaft that you have to jump down, and as you've guessed it, without the help of the silkworms, you're gonna fall to your death. Now this is one of the things that the community fixed up with that patched up version, as the original developers, well, they never released any patches themselves, and basically they just told people to use console commands to either give yourself the toy or just no clip down there. Now I was absolutely surprised that this led us to, well, an actually large submarine, and here I was thinking that the story wasn't really all connected to the gameplay. And after a bit of key hunting, we end up going inside and then launching the missiles. Which ended up going somewhere, although it wasn't where Bossman wanted them to go, as he wanted us to take out Takehiro's home, as taking out Takehiro was actually our one goal through all of this.
I did exactly as you instructed.
You were to launch the missiles, killing Mr. Takehiro in his base. Our intelligence indicates Takehiro is still alive.
And I'm sure there's probably much easier ways of doing this. Oh yeah, there is, as now we're just going to go straight to his home and take him on directly. Nice place you've got here. Shame you've just left guns lying around that I can pick up. And that your security system is just a bunch of hidden buttons, which ends up being the equivalent of having a fake rock with a key in it sat on top of your welcome mat. And I did find it quite funny that in the end we didn't even have to complete the assassination. Turns out they tried to escape in disguise and ended up getting taken out by their own robots. Oh well. And I guess it's time to talk to Bossman again.
You don't believe me, Damage? Why don't you take a visit to the bank? See for yourself. Bossman is not a liar.
Alright,
and damn, someone really put a lot of effort into modelling those asses, and whoever made this cutscene really wanted you to see them.
Make sure I never see his sorry face again. Are we clear?
And oh, the most unsurprising double cross of all time is taking place. But Damage doesn't know that just yet, as he's taken a nice walk over to a cash machine via a few of the more pleasant areas of town, including a dance club filled with dancers in booths, as well it wouldn't be a late 90s shooter without dancers. But eventually we will have to deal with the boss man's female assassins, who are exceptionally good at their job. Why did they even need me? BOSS appears to have an entire army of these, based on how many of them keep respawning, and how quickly they can take us out as well. So just keep pushing ahead, jumping from tower to tower, trying to keep 1 foot ahead of them. And wouldn't you know it, when we finally make it to that cache point, well... we have no money. And there's an ambush. And possibly the biggest surprise in all of this is that we wake up in a cell. That is particularly easy to get out of. It's the whole they should have just killed me when they had the chance. But now, well, now we're going to take on those big robots and show them why we're called Damage. And eventually we'll meet up with Boss Man and... well, that lasted long. They have got a ridiculous amount of firepower. So again I ask the question, why did they need me? Why did he even need an entire army? As they have a ridiculous range of weapons, from the turrets that will just pepper you instantly as soon as you spawn in, and unless you take them out they will take you out very quickly, to this weird spiral one that will really mess with your vision. I actually found this to be the worst part of the game, and I've been really enjoying it up to this point. The level design was interesting and complex, and overall they did some nice things with the Quake engine, so I definitely think you should give this one a go. Now I can't really talk too much about the multiplayer side of it as I didn't check that out, but the single player up until that last boss fight was a lot of fun. The various toys were interesting, but they weren't really used all that often. The parachute feels like it's added to make up for the full damage, or they added full damage because they had already added the parachute. The sub, well, it was really cool, but wasn't really needed. But I will say I had a lot of fun with that hoverboard, even if it was just a way of trying to skip past part of the level. But the drone? Well, that was pretty much nowhere to be found. Now it's possible that all of these play a larger role in the multiplayer, but again, I didn't really check that out. I'm more interested in the single player content. And I feel this is a pretty good place to leave it. Now if you played this back in the day or remember seeing it out in the wild, let me know in the comments. And before I go, thank you for getting this far. It means the world to me. I'm also extremely grateful to my amazing Patreons who got to see this a whole week early and without any of those pesky adverts. Now if you'd like to join them and also see your name on the screen, then you can do for free. There'll be links in the description. And until next time, I was the Goldfish, that was Damage and Boss Man in the Malice Drive Time show, and this was Goldfish on Games.
Stop and drop.